business law. All right, so last week was our discussion of torts. Tuesday was intentional torts. Thursday was the unintentional tort of negligence. And then this week, I've named this unit products liability, but this is really a subset of torts. It's a continuation of our torts discussion. Products liability is a subset of tort law. But I've just broken it out this week for some different discussion. So the plan for this week is today we're going to talk products liability, the McDonald's case. If we have time, we might do a little negligence review. And then on Thursday, we're going to talk cases. So I've assigned you 2 cases to read for Thursday, the Willingham versus Hudson case and the Dykstra versus Darling case. Those are both tort law cases. And so we'll talk about those Thursday. If we have extra time Thursday, I've got some other current event stuff that we can discuss that'll just involve me and nothing that you'll need to do to prepare for that. So this week's quiz will be due Monday, and it is over the outline for today's lecture, Thursday's lecture, and the 2 cases that you're going to read for Thursday and the McDonald's article. So basically everything we discuss in class and everything that's assigned. Any questions over that? Okay. With that, then, we will start our discussion of products liability. So products liability is generally the body of law that protects consumers and allows consumers to be compensated in the event that they're injured or harmed by a product that is defective or is not suitable for the use for which it is intended. Product defects can come in many different ways. You could have a manufacturing defect, which would be that during the manufacturing process, the intended design was departed from in some way. So we've designed a product that's safe, but somehow in the manufacture of it, we've put it together, we've constructed it, done so in a way that makes the product unsafe. We could also have a design defect where the design of the product itself is defective. The manufacturing process is fine. We put together a defective product, great, but it was defective from the start. An example of that would be like some of these lawsuits against car companies for like where the gas tank is located. That would be a design defect, that they should not have designed the car in a way that the gas tank would be in a place where it would be susceptible to a collision and explosion, or an unreasonable risk. In design defect cases, usually there is a better, safer way to design the product, but the manufacturer, for whatever reason, decided not to. Usually that's going to be because it was going to cost them more to do, right? We're a manufacturer, we're in the design process, we're like, this might not be the safest, but if we were to make it safer, we'd have to go back and undo all this work we've done so far. It would cost us X number of dollars to add this feature in, whatever it would cost us more. So sometimes businesses might make the decision to just go forward with a design that could have been done a different way. So you have a manufacturing defect, you have a design defect, and you could also have a product that's defective because the warnings are inadequate. Talked a little bit about that last week. You look all the time you've all seen the labels on things and you're like, who in the world would, try to eat a mattress, but those warning labels are on there for a reason, usually because somebody is dumb enough to have done it before and the company is trying to protect themselves from liability. So you have manufacturing defects, design defects, or inadequate warnings. Those are the 3 ways that products are usually defective. When we think about liability for product liability or liability for the manufacturer, we can recover under different theories. One is negligence. So last week we talked in depth about how negligence just applies in our everyday lives, both personal and at work. Negligence could also apply in a product's liability area. So we're going to come back to that in a second, but we're going to look at negligence, fraud, and then strict liability is another theory of recovery. So let's go back to negligence. How does the theory of negligence apply in products liability? Well, remember the elements that we had for negligence last week: a duty of care, a breach of that duty, causation, not just causation in fact, but proximate cause, and then there had to be damages. So those are the four elements of any negligence claim. No different for products liability. It would look like this. The duty of care is to design products in a reasonably safe way. A car company must design airbags that deploy properly. Okay? If they have breached the duty of taking reasonable care in the design, then we're on our way to negligence. In selecting the materials that are safe and appropriate, the duty of care is that you're going to select materials that are not going to be harmful, that are going to act in the intended way, that aren't going to cause any unforeseen or unreasonable risk of harm to the consumer. A furniture maker should not use flammable fabric to upholster a chair or a sofa if there are safer options. Well, it shouldn't do it, period, whether there's safer options or not. So that's a duty. You got a duty of care to design the product safely. You've got a duty of care to select the materials to be safe. You have a duty of care to produce and assemble the product correctly, right? When they're putting it together, they need to do that right. They have a duty of care to test the products to make sure they're safe before unleashing them on the public. They have a duty of care to warn consumers about non-obvious dangers. Your outline talks about a lawnmower warning people to keep their hands and feet away from the blades. That seems like a pretty obvious danger to me, but that might not be obvious to a child or somebody who's never seen a lawnmower before, or if it's a brand new fancy lawnmower and all you're used to is the old push. The point being, we think it's silly to say keep your hands and feet away from the blades of a lawnmower, but in practice, two things. It's not always that clear cut, depending on your age, your level of education, your level of sophistication, whether you've seen these things or operated them before. But also, that brings up a very important rule of mine that all of you should know, and that is that most people are idiots. Not anybody in this class. Hopefully not anybody that, any of our close friends or family, although there's some my close friends and family that are idiots for sure. But most people are idiots, and we can't ever underestimate that. So there's a duty of care to warn people of non-obvious risks. I would amend that really to say there's a duty of care to warn people even against things that might seem obvious to us but may not be obvious to everybody. There is a duty of care to inspect components from the suppliers to make sure that they are not faulty. So if I'm putting a car together and I've ordered some fabric from a manufacturer in another country, they send it over, it turns out to be defective because it's highly flammable. I can't escape liability just by pointing at them. I've got a duty also to know what I'm putting in the car. Now, that doesn't mean that lets the manufacturer of the fabric off either. If I get sued, I'm bringing them into it for sure. But I may have also been negligent in not testing or inspecting what they sent me. Negligence might not be limited to just one actor. We could have negligence up and down the manufacturing chain by more than one actor. There is a duty, like you see in a lot of times when you open a box and it says inspected by employee number, whatever, or a name or something like that. The manufacturers have a duty of care to inspect their product, make sure it was put in, boxed properly. So all along the process, from design to material selection, to actual product assembly, to inspection, to testing, to delivery to the consumer, all along the way, manufacturers have a duty of care. If they breach that duty, then we're on the road to negligence. To finish out a negligence claim, we would have to then have causation. The defect had to be the proximate cause of the injury, and then there had to be some actual damages. This would be a good point to point out to you that this week's discussion question involves your own personal observations or experiences with negligence. So what I've asked you to do is to think this week or in your recent past, where have you observed negligence? And I know I've hammered home to y'all that in order to have a negligence claim in court, we're going to have the duty of care, the breach of care, the causation, and the damages. I'm really interested in just those first two elements for your discussion question. Just show me or tell me where you saw an example that there was a duty of care and somebody breached it. Don't worry about the damages part. We're not going to court. I just want to see if y'all can recognize areas where there was a duty of care and it may have been breached. The example that I give you in the discussion question is that there is a stop sign on my street that is obscured by tree branches that have become overgrown, and now you can't see the stop sign. I know it's there because I've lived there for 20 years, and I meant to take a picture of it to show y'all. That'd be my example. The duty of care would be that the city has a duty to make sure that motorists and pedestrians can see safety signs, can see the stop traffic signs. They've breached that duty by allowing a tree branch to grow to where no one can see the stop sign. Okay? If someone were to run that stop sign and there were to be an accident, that would be the proximate cause. The failure the breach of the duty to make sure that was visible was the proximate. In other words, is it foreseeable that having a hidden stop sign might result in some traffic accidents? For sure. All right. And so if that happened and if there were damages that would result, that would be enough for a negligence court case. I'm asking you this week in your discussion question, just what general negligence do you see all around you? It's everywhere. I'm sure I've been negligent already this morning in some way or another. All right, so back to products liability. Those would be the ways that negligence would show up in a products liability claim. Fraud can also show up in a products liability claim in this way. If I, as the seller of or marketer or manufacturer of a product, lie to you about a feature that you rely on and then are injured because of that, that could be a claim for products liability. Okay? We're not in the negligence sphere now because remember, negligence is carelessness, no intent. Fraud, I lied to you. I told you that this drug was FDA approved. Or I told you that my packaging says this drug is safe for pregnant women, and it's not. And I know that. I've done some testing, and we had some research come back that it might not be safe for pregnant women, but we went ahead and marketed it that way anyway. Fraudulent misrepresentations. That's different from negligence where you're careless. Fraud is you knowingly mislead the consumer. That's a second theory of recovery in products liability. The third one is strict liability. So we also touched on this last week just in the general area of torts. And that idea was that it's not an intentional tort because the person didn't intend to do the act that caused the harm. It wasn't negligence because it wasn't carelessness. In other words, no intent to harm and everybody was careful, but harm still occurred. In some situations, even though nobody intended to harm and everybody was as careful as they could be and harm results, we still impose liability under a theory of strict liability. That was for abnormally dangerous activities like blasting dynamite. You could be as careful as you can in blasting dynamite, but if your blasting dynamite ends up breaking somebody's window or causing harm, you're going to be liable under the theory of strict liability. Really, that's like saying no fault. We're not worried about fault. You're just going to be liable anyway. I gave the example of my pet tiger, that the hurricane came through and blew his cage over and he got out and killed a bunch of people's dogs. I would be liable for that, even though I was careful, even though I didn't intend for anybody's dogs to get eaten by my tiger. Same thing in products liability. Sometimes there's nothing wrong with the design of a product. There was nothing wrong with the materials. It was put together and manufactured just fine, but it ended up that it was dangerous to the consumer. Really nobody's fault. It's just that we've got a product. We didn't intend for it to cause the harm that it does in the hands of the consumer, but it does. As a society, we like the idea of strict liability for policy reasons because that places the responsibility on the manufacturer rather than on the consumer. Why might we do that? Why would we rather, even though the manufacturer has done nothing wrong, why might we still want them to bear the responsibility of a defective product? Damien.
Because it would also force them to reevaluate whatever it was that caused the harm.
It does. It is incentive for them to be more careful, for sure. It does incentivize the manufacturers to be more careful and to maybe take more care in what they're doing, even though they didn't technically do anything wrong. What else? Jackson, as between you and Procter and Gamble, a large multinational billion-dollar corporation, who is more poised to bear the loss? They are, right? It's not a big deal to them. You have you're injured by a chainsaw. There was nothing defective about it, but it ends up that you were injured. You sue them for product liability because there was something wrong with it. You end up going to the hospital. You got $1 million in bills and damages and all that. For most people, that means bankruptcy. That doesn't mean anything for Procter and Gamble. So we decide to kind of spread that. We decide to, in a situation where there's no fault, we will put that on the manufacturer because they are, in theory, more able to bear the cost of that. How would they turn around and how might that cost come back on the consumer anyway? Raise prices, right. But that spreads it out again amongst all consumers and not concentrated on one person. So this kind of policy reason behind strict liability. Manufacturers are best positioned to spread the cost out. All right, so in order for a strict liability claim, a plaintiff has to show that the product was defective. So you don't, when I say no fault, what I mean by that, I can confuse myself on this sometimes too. The product is defective. It's just that the manufacturer didn't intentionally do it or carelessly do it. It just ends up that it's defective. For example, I buy a chainsaw and order it. It comes, it's shipped to me. When I get it, there's a crack in the blade that's not visible to my eye. I use it and it ends up, the blade snaps in half and gashes my arm and I get a severe cut. I might sue the chainsaw manufacturer and they might say, well, when it left our place, it was fine. We inspected it. There's nothing defective about the materials. The design is fine. It's put together right. But somehow by the time it got to you, there was a crack in it. It was defective by the time it got to you. That would be an example of strict liability. We're going to ask the manufacturer to be liable for that, even though they were careful. So the product was defective. The seller was in business of selling that product, meaning that secondhand sales, like if I bought that chainsaw at a garage sale, that's not from a seller who is in the business of selling that product. If it's defective, I'm not going to be able to go back against the manufacturer. The product was unreasonably dangerous. the plaintiff suffered physical harm, the defect proximately caused the harm, and the product was not substantially changed by somebody after sale. I opened the box, it was defective. Those are the requirements for strict liability. So 3 ways that we could have products liability: negligence, fraud, and strict liability. Let me hop back to the first page of your outline real quick. In the negligence section, there's a point that says privity of contract is not required. That means that it doesn't have to be the original buyer of the product. Privity of contract means I bought it directly from the manufacturer and I'm the only user. That's not necessarily required. Even if the injured product, so I buy the chainsaw, it's defective, James asks to borrow it, I loan it to him, I haven't used it yet, but it's got that crack in it, he uses it, it breaks, it injures him. Just because he's not the one that bought it from the manufacturer doesn't mean that they're not liable to him. They're going to be liable for a defective product no matter what, no matter who's injured by it. All right, defenses to products liability. So just like we had defenses to negligence, we also have some that apply here. One would be assumption of risk. We also saw this last week in negligence. If a plaintiff knowingly used a defective product anyway, so if I got that chainsaw and it was cracked in the blade and it was obvious to anybody that was cracked in the blade, let's say it was like almost broken in half, it was flimsy, okay? I might be said to have assumed the risk of using the product because I knew it was defective. If I continued to use an e-cigarette after multiple overheating warnings, if y'all ever picked up your phone and it's been super hot because it was in the sun or something and it shuts down, if I burn myself on that because I continue to try to use it after I picked it up and it's shut down because it's too hot, that might be assumption of risk. Product misuse. If a product is used in an unintended, unforeseeable way. So if I put my socks in the toaster oven to dry them out and they catch fire and my house burns down. If I try to sue the manufacturer of the toaster for products liability, one of the defenses they would use is you didn't use the product in the way that it was intended to be used. You don't get to just do anything with a product and then if things go wrong, sue the manufacturer. Comparative negligence. This is one from last week too. Remember where we measure the fault of one party against the fault of the other party. Got a great example of comparative negligence in the McDonald's case. So I'm going to save further discussion of that until we get there. And then commonly known dangers. There is no duty to warn of obvious risks. I love that the outline says knives are sharp, coffee is hot, because it's not that easy, is it? Yes, coffee is hot. I think after reading the McDonald's case, we would say that there might be a duty to warn of obvious dangers if they're beyond what we would reasonably expect the danger to be. Yes, coffee is hot, but yes, I should be warned if it's hot as rocket fuel. That would be that argument. So with that, let's move on then to the McDonald's case. Show of hands, who had heard of this before you were assigned the reading? So this is known to y'all. And what was your impression of the case, if you had one, before you read anything? Anybody? You had heard about this case before, and you thought this is a whiny old lady who just, what is our society? Everybody's a victim. Coffee is hot, duh. right? You're going to sue somebody because you got burned. Anybody else have any preconceived notions about it? All right, so let's walk through then what actually happened. Nick, tell us what was the actual physical sequence of events from when Miss Liebeck pulled up to the McDonald's drive-thru.
So she ordered coffee.
Right.
Got the coffee.
Okay, she got it. Where'd she put it?
And then that's when she put it in between her legs.
Yep.
Stopped the car, and then she took the top off, and then immediately after, all the liquids
fell backwards, kind of. If you can picture that, it fell backwards, soaked into her sweatpants, held against her skin, called third-degree burns. Excellent. Y'all probably don't remember this, but I'm old enough to remember really before there were, like now you've got cup holders everywhere built into the cars and stuff. We used to really put drinks between our legs. As a kid growing up, I remember doing all that. We won't do that so much anymore. But anyway, that's what she did. She put it between her legs. She was going to put the cream and sugar or whatever in it. Took the top off. It tips this way and results in third-degree burns. All right, she went to the hospital. And what kind of happened? What were her injuries, generally speaking? Third-degree burns over like 6% of her body. Is that right? And she stayed in the hospital for a week so they could do skin grafts and remove dead tissue or whatever else you do to that kind of thing. All right. So then she says, I'm going to sue McDonald's. And she does sue McDonald's. And she asks for how much? $20,000. All right. And that was, how did she break that down in her first ask?
like 10,000 in medical costs.
Good.
And I think just 10,000 in damages from that.
All right, so 10,000 in medical costs. What kind of damages do we call those from our discussion last week? What are damages that repay the victim for the cost of what they've been in? Well, for a specific cost. They're compensatory damages, right? To compensate her for her loss. Compensatory damages could be special damages that have a number assigned to them or general damages that we can't calculate. So her hospital bills are compensatory. Are they general or special? Special, because we can see we've got a receipt. The other 10,000 was for what? Pain and suffering, I think. That's special or general? General damage, right. So that's how she broke down her ask. I want $20,000, $10,000 to pay me back for my hospital bills, and $10,000 to compensate me for the pain and suffering that I endured. McDonald's did not settle the case, was not willing to settle the case with her for that. You can, the article doesn't get into it a lot, but what would have happened was she sued them, discovery would have ensued, and McDonald's would have asked Ms. Liebeck for any information they wanted from her. Show me your medical bills. I might want to take her deposition and ask her about all this pain and suffering. Tell me about that. What exactly is it that you claim was so painful and that you suffered from? Get in. Let's figure out what the basis for her claim is. I'll depose her and see what kind of witness she's going to make, right? She might be a little old lady who's a great witness, and we leave that deposition and we're like, we don't want any part of getting her on the stand in front of a jury. We might need to pay her. We might take her deposition and think this lady is the biggest liar we've ever seen. She's obviously just out for money, so we're going to keep stringing it along. I don't know. But the purpose of discovery is to find out all these things ahead of time so you're not surprised later. Ms. Liebeck's lawyers in discovery would have wanted to ask McDonald's what? Well, y'all are Stella's lawyers. What do you want to know from McDonald's in discovery?
What was the policy as far as how hot the coffee could
What was your policy, and what did they find out about that?
That they regularly held it at 180 to 190.
That they meant for it to be that hot. Exactly. Not only was it that hot, but your company policy mandates that it be that hot. That's something they found out in discovery. What else do you want to know if you're Stella's lawyers? Say that again, Emily. Has it happened before? Great question. Because if it has, then how does that help you as her lawyer?
Well, reading the case, they said they had 700 prior complaints.
Right? So if you're her lawyer and you're standing in front of the jury and you found out in discovery that they've done it before, they knew about it, right? They knew about this. This wasn't a surprise. Not only did they know about it, but they kept their policy in place that mandated it be this high. Good. What else do you want to know? Levi.
Maybe how many times it's happened at places similar.
Okay. Like geographically, like has it happened at that restaurant before or
just like any other drive-throughs?
Any drive-throughs at McDonald's or other in the area? Okay, good. Yeah. Got y'all thinking like lawyers now. What else do you want to know? Who all knew about it? How high did this go? Miss Andrews' question was, how many times has it happened? What was it, 700 in a 10-year period? Something like that?
Yeah.
Who all knew that? At some point, somebody had to say, well, let's just keep the policy the same. Did the person who wrote the policy know about the other ones? How bad were they? What testing did y'all do? Once you found out that people were being burned, then did you do anything internally to, did you do any testing to see how 170 degree coffee might, how fast that might cool? What about 160? What other studies did you do to look into it, if anything? The more they knew about it, to Emily's point, the better Stella's case is going to be. This is all what will be going on during discovery. Your article talks about expert witnesses. Those folks would have been deposed during discovery. If you've got an expert witness that's the so-called expert in thermodynamics as applied to human skin, I don't want to find out the basis of that guy's opinion or his basis of his experience for the first time on the witness stand. I want to find about it during discovery. I want to take his deposition. I want to say, what all have you reviewed? What's your experience? How did you conclude that this was or wasn't an unreasonably dangerous temperature? By the way, the expert for McDonald's, what was his argument against Miss Andrews' argument that there were 700 claims, 700 burns in a 10-year period? What was his argument to that?
That they were statistically insignificant when compared to the billion cups of coffee that McDonald's sells.
Good, Damien. We sold 1 billion cups of coffee over 10 years and maybe 700 people got burned. And you want us to stop what we're doing and go do all this testing? And I mean, if we did that for every possible freaking risk associated with anything we do, all we would do is go around looking at, we would go bankrupt testing and researching and thinking about risks. What really ought to happen is if people were just smart enough to not put hot coffee in their lap in a car, that's the better solution than us having to run around guessing what dangers may be out there. I'm not saying that's the right argument, but that's the argument McDonald's would have made.
Because they tried to say that, people buy it on their way to work and plan to drink it at their destination.
What do y'all think about that? That's complete horseshit. No one goes through a drive-through, buys coffee, and intends to drink it where their destination is.
At that point,
I can't believe anybody even said that with a straight face, but apparently they did.
You're not supposed to, you can't assume that either. You can't just assume that.
Well, that's right. That's right. You can't assume that. Is it foreseeable that somebody might open it while they're in the car?
Yeah.
Of course it is.
but also even if they don't, like you said, there wasn't really cup holders, so like it could still spill on you.
Well, I don't know exactly about the cup holders from when the date of this case. I just remember as a kid,
But
50 years ago, we
like
didn't have
it can still spill on you.
But she was 79, and I guarantee you that in her lifetime, putting drinks between your legs is what people did.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all think that's silly now or not, but
I mean, people spill coffee even to this day when they go to Starbucks. They spill it on themselves just down.
anybody worked at Starbucks before? You have? So did y'all have any training about the temperature of coffee?
Generally, most of the stuff was already preset to be at a certain temperature and to make sure that there was like the little sleeve that the cup goes
Yep.
into. Other than that, I mean, it wasn't like overbearingly hot, like you weren't boiling water basically.
Those sleeves are they're new within the last 25 years or so. We didn't used to have those either. Did this case ever come up in anything with your employment? Interesting. All right, so
Also, it does say in this case that other establishments, which probably would have included Starbucks at that time, didn't hold their coffee to nearly that same.
all right, so that would have been something that you would have figured out during discovery, right? And at trial, you're calling the Burger King, somebody from Burger King, you're calling somebody from Dunkin', and you're saying, what's your company policy? Oh, our company policy is 160 degrees. Why not 180? Oh, we would never do 180. That's hot as rocket fuel. That's dangerous. Would it have helped McDonald's if all these other places served their coffee at 180 degrees? I think so. The argument I would make is you should expect it to be that hot. That's how hot it is everywhere. It doesn't make it right, but it changes the expectation a little bit. All right, so those were some of the arguments that were made. Did the jury buy any of McDonald's arguments? They did not. So Miss Liebeck initially wanted $20,000, and the jury awarded her what? $3 million.
But then the judge reduced it.
Then the judge reduced it. So let's break down that the jury award. I think your article breaks it down. The compensatory damages portion of the jury award was $200,000, I think. All right, that would have been for her hospital bills, pain and suffering, all that stuff. Significantly more than the $10,000 or the $20,000 she was asking for up front. And then punitive damages, which remember are a different category of damages. Those are to punish the defendant. Those are to send a message to other potential defendants not to do the same thing. The punitive damages were 2.7 million. And that's what set everybody off. So the press that this case got was not McDonald's serves coffee that's too hot. McDonald's knew about it and didn't care. McDonald's just decided to make a bottom line decision, which is if 700 people get burned out of 1 billion, that's fine. We're good with that. The story everywhere was woman spills hot coffee and gets $3 million. What is this country coming to? That was how it was played, and that's probably the urban legend and some of the pop culture context that you all learned it through, that I think Tim was talking about. But yeah, there's a huge outrage about that. Now that you see all the facts and kind of break it down, you can understand a little bit more of how we got to where we are. It also illustrates for you how companies have to factor in the emotion of a jury and how a courtroom plays out versus just making a settlement negotiation. If we're at mediation and we're trading numbers back and forth, if we're negotiating, then that's more like a business decision, like McDonald's. Am I going to give you $20,000? I don't think so. Am I willing to go to court for more than that? I guess so. That's not as much of an emotional thing. You get to the courtroom and you got 12 humans in the jury box, and now you're playing to emotion, you're playing to experience, you're playing to all these things besides just the bottom line or just sort of cost of doing business. So when McDonald's is calculating what they'd be willing to pay, they need to take all that into account. Another reason that companies sometimes say no up front is they don't want to encourage other consumers just to be suing them all the time. Hey, I know how you can make a quick 20 grand, just spill coffee in your lap going through McDonald's drive-thru and then sue them and they'll pay you off. Easy money. All right. So there's some of that as well. McDonald's, I would love to know the number of lawsuits that a place like McDonald's gets every year for negligence, for premises liability, for products liability, for whatever it is. I found a hair in my Big Mac. I don't know. But I bet there are a lot. Probably a lot for slip and fall, that kind of thing. And if they went and settled every single lawsuit that got filed against them, that would be a bad business decision. So somewhere they've got to balance out paying out legitimate claims, but resisting frivolous claims. Thank you. That is exactly the word I was looking for. All right. So Levi mentioned is correctly that the judge did reduce the punitive damage award, which in some states judges have discretion to take a jury award and knock it back down. Not necessarily on compensatory damages, but mostly on punitive damages. The judges can adjust if they felt like the jury got a little bit too emotional or unreasonable in their award. Lots of times we have wrongful death cases where somebody died or a child died or a baby died, and that can cause a jury to really pile on the punitive damages. So a judge who is a little bit more objective and more experienced, heard these type of claims, might reduce a punitive damage award. They don't have to, but in this case, the judge did, and I think he made it 3 times the compensatory damage award, something like that, 4 times. Okay, yeah, and so then what happened from a practical perspective is McDonald's looked at Ms. Liebeck's lawyers and said, we're going to appeal. That doesn't mean they're going to win. It just means that it's going to prolong the case while it goes through appeals. And they might have had they did have the discussion. How much would you accept if we just agree not to appeal? We'll write you a check today and it'll all be over. That number is confidential. We don't know what that number was, but it was something less than $480,000 and something more than the $200,000. So they settled for amount in there. McDonald's still might look at you today and say, well, 400, let's say we settle for 300,000. I mean, we probably spent 300,000 in legal fees, but it's worth it to us. I mean, from the bottom line perspective, we're fine. We're going to fight lawsuits for this reason. It's just a better business decision to us to fight and lose some than to just pay them all out. I don't know what all that calculus is, but those are the discussions they were having. All right, so the jury applied one of McDonald's defenses in this case was comparative negligence. Okay, even if, jury, you find that we were negligent in serving coffee that was that hot, she's also to blame because she put it between her legs in a vehicle. And that's negligence. We say that's negligence as well. She has a duty of care to use a hot cup of coffee in a way that's not going to injure her. And she breached that duty when she put it between her legs and it slipped. Is it foreseeable that you put a hot drink between your legs, it might slip? That's foreseeable. Sure. So she should bear some responsibility. The jury came out at what percentage? They did agree with McDonald's that she was somewhat at fault.
I think it was
20% for Ms. Liebeck and 80% for McDonald's. So my question for y'all is, well, before I get to that, any thoughts, reactions, questions about this case, the facts of this case? I'm going to ask each of you what you would have done in the jury as far as percentage of fault. But before we get there, I want to just make sure anybody doesn't have any other questions. Damien.
I'm just curious, like, at any point did the McDonald's think to, and this is just throwing a dart at a board here, like putting any kind of blame on the manufacturer of the cup itself because maybe the structural integrity of the cup failed.
So I don't know the answer to that, but if I'm McDonald's lawyers, that's probably something I would have looked into. Is there anybody else we could bring in to shoulder the blame? You know, is there anybody else at fault here?
Because like I'm sure they got some type of material safety data sheet that says this is what our cups can withstand. But also I wonder if the defense would also bring that up like, hey, the cups you're using can't even withstand that.
Well, that's a great point. So I would want an expert in thermodynamics as it applies to paper cups, right?
What's that, foam cups?
Foam cups,
Yeah.
to come and testify about how much heat this cup can withstand. Yeah. Is there a problem with the cup? That certainly could have come out. And remember, that doesn't absolve McDonald's of any liability if the manufacturer of the cup did wrong. McDonald's still has a duty to use safe materials and test them. It just means that McDonald's might have also been able to bring in somebody else that could shoulder the blame. Any other questions, thoughts, observations on this case? All right, so let's always start over here. So I'm gonna start on this. Let's start back with Mr. Gwynn. You want to lead us off today? You're on the jury, and the question is, what percentage of fault would you give to McDonald's, and what percentage would you give to Miss Liebeck? You can give 100 to 0. It's totally up to you. 70% McDonald's and 30% Ms. Liebeck. And what's your thinking behind that? She should have known some of the risks. Okay. All right. Juror Stegman, what do you say?
I would say, I'd say like 80% McDonald's fault.
80% McDonald's? All right. So you agreed with the jury in the case. Where does your thinking of the 20% for her come in?
I mean, obviously there's a certain risk when dealing with anything so hot, but obviously she also didn't know it was that hot to cause flammable organs. So I think the 20 makes sense. I would even agree with like a 90-10.
You'd even be okay with 90-10. All right. Okay. All right, Mr. Lucas, what's your verdict?
I would say McDonald's at a 60 and a 40.
All right, so you're giving Stella a little bit more responsibility than the jury did. What's your thinking on that?
First, I used to work at McDonald's.
Oh, why didn't you speak up? I should have asked that question. That's my negligence.
So when we give it to the customer in their pocket, she put it like in the middle of her thighs.
Did y'all ever have conversations about the temperature of the coffee?
No.
Did you do any training on how to handle the coffee, or?
Not really. We just like, when we're right now, we just refill, but we didn't get nothing.
What about putting the tops on? Do they?
Yeah, they make sure we put our tops on. We make sure like it's really good.
You have to make sure you did all that.
When we open the temperature, it just pops out.
Are you a coffee drinker?
Yeah, well, kind of.
Did you drink McDonald's coffee?
No.
Why not?
Because I work there, and it's roaches on the coffee.
You think it wasn't sanitary.
Yeah,
Your problem wasn't with the heat at all. I gotcha. The coffee machine, which McDonald's was this?
Manchester.
Okay, on Manchester. And how long ago was that?
I quit in January.
All right, do you recommend that McDonald's?
I mean, everything's clean, but that, I recommend it.
Okay, but not the coffee. Okay, all right, everybody got that?
Or the fries. Well,
what's wrong with the fries?
They don't clean the oil. Everything else is like clean.
All right. Anything else we need to know about McDonald's? Okay. All right, Nick, what's your percentage?
I think I'd go with the original.
You like 80-20?
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Ollinger, what's yours?
I actually think that she shouldn't have any.
No fault?
No fault.
Or no recovery? No fault. Okay. All right, you be 100-0.
I think that maybe if they brought in the cup company, maybe they should bear some blame. But the thing is that, you know, if she had spilled a cup of coffee that was at a normal temperature, that, you know, in the trade, that's how the temperature is, it said that there wouldn't have been as severe burns. She also wouldn't really have a claim. I'm sure she spilled coffee at some point in her life on herself and didn't suffer those.
So you feel like if she knew that the coffee was as hot as it was, she wouldn't have put it between her legs.
I don't even know if she would have even bought it if she knew how hot it was. I mean, we don't know if that's her first time ever buying coffee from McDonald's. She may have made coffee at home all the time, and she was like, "Oh, I'm with my grandson."
Maybe her grandson was treating her to a cup of
'cause
roach
it was her
coffee.
grandson.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Lou, what's your percentage?
I will say 5% her, 95% to my
5% her, 95%. All right. Yes, sir.
Well, at first I was like the original, but now I'm thinking like 70-30.
70-30. So Mr. Adams is going to give still a little bit more responsibility than the jury did. All right. Harrelson.
90-10.
90-10. All right. 90-10. McDonald's 90?
Yeah.
All right. Prove.
Just the original.
You're 80-22? You think they did right? All right, Levi, what's your verdict?
Like
60-40. Who's 60?
McDonald's.
Okay. All right. Jackson?
I think 90-10.
90-10. McDonald's 90?
It was like 190 degrees or something. And I mean, if it's hot enough to burn you.
So, yes, she should have known it was hot, but maybe she didn't know it was that hot.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Or she shouldn't. She had a right not to expect it to be that hot. Okay. I like that argument. Tim?
I'd say 90-10 as well.
90-10. McDonald's 90? All right. Nobody's come out on McDonald's side yet. Here it comes, Ramon. You're gonna 95-5. All right. So has anybody? You said 100, right? All right. So you and Ramon are the closest to absolute fault for McDonald's. Luis. 65-35. All right. For McDonald's 65. Okay. All right. Emily. 90-10. McDonald's 90. All right.
I say the 70-30.
70-30.
She knowingly is purchasing a hot drink, and anybody knows if you put a drink between your legs, there's always the risk of spilling it. So, I mean, like, taught this from a young age, I was always like,
But
that's when your legs are spilling.
degrees, though. I
Well,
mean,
yeah, but
you
still,
do
she was
it.
thinking, she had already purchased the drink too, and it had changed hands from the business too.
I like the way y'all are thinking.
Yeah, like even if it wasn't as hot, like she still is gonna burn herself. Like I don't know. I feel like you need to use your brain a little bit.
Use your brain a little bit. Would y'all have assigned her more fault if the car was moving when she opened the cup?
Yeah.
But
You would?
She's old.
That good point, Jackson. Do we cut her any slack because she's 79? No.
She is.
She's old. What do you, Mr. Lou, if you're in front of the jury, are you using that? This little old lady.
Then she shouldn't be buying coffee.
She shouldn't be buying coffee. All right, where did we leave off? Ms. Harvey. 60-40. McDonald's 60? Or 60 her?
Oh, wait.
Oh, no, look.
I think the woman was a little at fault.
You think she was more at fault? A little bit. So 50-50, 51-49, something like that. All right, we've got a juror who is favoring McDonald's. All right. Ms. Doe.
I'll say 50-50.
50-50. All right.
And I agree with her.
Okay. So let me ask y'all then. These are two international opinions that are 50-50. They're less sympathetic to Miss Liebeck. Lou, what were you again? Oh, you're 95. All right. So is there anything culturally that influences your reaction to this?
Even someone has a cup holder on their car, why would you not put on a cup?
So you're putting more responsibility on the consumer to use common sense.
Yeah.
Right. We don't cut people in this country a lot of slack for using. Most people are idiots. Maybe I should say most people here are idiots. But that's always interesting to me that the international students are less sympathetic to Miss Liability.
So then my question to everybody who wanted more blame on her, if she had just bought the cup of coffee, didn't put it between her legs, and it just spilled on her in general, would you hold that same liability to her?
That would be a completely different situation, so you can't really apply that.
How did it spill?
I don't think you can ask that.
Could be driving, you know. Well, okay.
Hold on. All right. We got 1 minute.
What if they pull into the parking lot and she's just sitting, like she has it like on the center console. She opens it with the car, it's parked. She opens it and then it spills on the side of the car and then onto her and still burns her.
What then?
Like, how is she supposed to open it with, like,
He's 80 years old.
and avoid it, you know,
People do.
and spill?
I love the way y'all are thinking. All right. Good job. I'll see y'all Thursday. Excellent. You'd be a good